You know, a good reminder from Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 is God always pierces the darkness, always. And the darkness doesn't last.
And the high priest, the great high priest who is Jesus Christ, he puts his hands on your life and you take your hands off and you say, my life is surrendered for your purposes.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Downline podcast. My name is Jamie Trussell. I have the privilege of hosting this for Downline and serving as the lead pastor of Redeemer Dripping Springs in the Texas Hill Country. We hope this podcast helps you faithfully walk with Jesus while pouring your life into others. And today we are joined by one of our recent Downline Summit speakers, Courtney Doctor. Courtney, how are you?
I'm good, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I think a lot of people will be familiar with you because we had, I thought, a really encouraging summit where a lot of people came. But for those that might not be, or, you know, if they haven't read your stuff on Gospel Coalition or the Bible studies or works you've done or heard you speak, give people a little bit of flyover of who is Courtney Doctor and what you're up to.
Yeah. Well, I do. You kind of alluded to the fact I work for the Gospel Coalition, so I'm the director of women's initiatives there, and I've had the privilege of writing a couple Bible studies and one book, another one on the way, which I'm excited about. And I have a kids book coming out in September that I wrote with my oldest grandson. So that was a ton of fun. One of my
That
all-time
is.
favorite projects for all of life, probably. But yeah, I have 5 grandkids, four grown adult kids, 3 of them married. My husband and I have recently, like in the last few years, moved to North Georgia, just south of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So
Oh,
we're like
wait, where are you in
new.
North Georgia?
We are north of Dalton, south of Chattanooga, kind of in the middle of. I mean, we have a couple
Oh,
acres. We've got 2 horses, and right now life is so crazy and fun. Our 2 of our adult children and their spouses and their kids and their dogs have all moved in with us for a couple months. So
Lord.
life is full. So I just shot a text out to the entire group and I was like, hey, I'm hopping on a podcast. So that just means dogs, kids, the whole thing
Right.
needs to be a little bit quieter for a few minutes.
Wait, so where were y'all before going to Georgia?
St. Louis. We had moved to St. Louis in 2010 to go to seminary. So my husband and I went to seminary together in our 40s. We kind of did this, like, we were living in Kansas. We literally sold the farm because we had about 15 acres and moved to St. Louis and went to seminary together when we had 2 boys in college and 2 girls in middle and high school. So it was crazy. But then we stayed in St. Louis. We loved St. Louis.
You loved St. Louis.
Loved
So,
St. Louis.
so what got you from St. Louis to North Georgia? I mean, those are kind of old stomping grounds. 'Cause I grew up in Auburn, but we'd go to Chattanooga every summer. I
You're
grew
kidding. Yeah.
I-75 from,
That we
Atlanta to
are
Chattanooga. Yeah.
we are right off of that. I'll tell you when we're not recording what exit it is.
Yes. Good.
But
Good. Smart.
we literally we just realized, like, we can work from anywhere. I work remotely and my husband for the most part does too. And so we did an Airbnb in Chattanooga for 3 months and then we did an Airbnb in the town where our oldest son lives for 3 months and we were like, Lord, where do you want us? I
Yeah.
did not see this coming. I did not see the South being part of our story, but we love being here.
But then you kind of realize there actually is a promised land and it's the Southeast. And so why not settle? That's what happened.
I
I
don't know.
understand.
I don't know, Jamie. I'm not there yet. I am a Midwestern girl through and through. So I'm kind of like that
No,
Midwestern. I love it. Love
I
it.
don't understand that. It's like all y'all love flat and cold.
I know, but also really nice people, you know?
Well, it is nice people. It
And
is
you can
nice
see,
people.
like, there are no sunsets like a Kansas sunset because you see
That's
the
probably true.
horizon for just ages. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I love it. I realized that because we live in the middle of like these North Georgia pine trees now, and
Mhm.
that like my soul breathing happy space is the plains, like the
Oh,
open where I can see forever.
so
Not
you
that I
feel a little
don't
claustrophobic.
absolutely. What?
So does that feel a little claustrophobic, all the trees?
I mean, they're beautiful. I'm not because Kansas doesn't have a ton of trees, so I love it, but it was the first time I kinda drove out of here and hit the plains, and I was like, "Oh, my soul is breathing
That's
a
so
little bit."
interesting.
So,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
it? But I do find the trees beautiful. I sit out and just watch them,
Yeah, I
sway
miss
in the
those
wind.
southern trees. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, hey, real quick, you mentioned Gospel Coalition Women's Initiatives. Y'all have the conference coming up again this summer?
We do. Our every other year conference. Man, I love it. Yeah, if anybody is listening and wants to come join us, I bet we could even get a discount code going for y'all because
Oh,
it's a fun conference.
yeah. You want to give a 30-second plug on what y'all are talking about this year?
Yeah, the whole theme is turn your eyes. And so we're looking at the Psalms, 7 different types of Psalms, and how they help us turn our eyes to Jesus in really all of life, all of our emotions, all of our circumstances. And then we'll have, I don't know, 50 breakout sessions and
Wow.
Shane and Shane leading worship and 60 speakers. And yeah, we're really
Yeah,
excited about it.
that's
I
huge.
mean, it's thousands of women from around the
Right.
world gathered to worship God. So yeah, if you want to come, June 11th through 13th in Indianapolis.
All right, June 11th through 13th. All right, you mentioned Psalms. I'm going to segue that to another arena of Old Testament wisdom literature. You've done some work on Proverbs, which I find to be, especially in disciple making, really helpful at times, but also if misused, maybe not so helpful
Yeah.
sometimes. So let's start big picture. When people are reading Proverbs, what is the helpful way to read it? And what are some maybe pitfalls to not fall into when just approaching the book at large?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think most of us either just intuitively approach it as like, oh, these are promises from God because that's how we read so much of scripture. But when we get to the wisdom literature, we really do need to remember that especially Proverbs, these are predominantly Solomon's reflections on the way the world normally works. These are kind of general. They're based in observation. They are they are looking at how we best function and flourish in the world that God made. And so wisdom literature is really asking the question, how do I live God's way in God's world?
Mhm.
Or how do I increase in this? I had an Old Testament professor in seminary that would say it's Proverbs is looking at the art of godly living. And
Okay.
so it's more observation. So the easiest explanation or the easiest example of that is going to be train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And people cling to that like a promise. And then the
Right.
adult children walk away from the Lord for at least a part of their lives, and they're like, but God promised, did I not? So then the burden falls on them, did I not train up my child in the way he should go? When instead, this is a general observation. It's still good and right. Train up your children in the way they should go. And generally speaking, they will not
Mm,
walk away from it. And so I guess I just want to say, as I'm even saying that to any parent whose child has walked away, just the reminder that the story is not over yet.
that's
So
good.
so
Yeah.
don't think that whatever's happening today is the end of the story. It's not.
No, that's really good. Well, and that is honestly, that's one that came to mind when you were using that as an example of it makes sense to want to cling to that as a promise, right?
Mhm.
Because formulas,
Yeah.
I was speaking the other day to a group and just kind of saying, man, the kingdom just doesn't, two plus two rarely equals four in life and God's economy. It would be great if it did, because then we could go, this is the input, here's the output, it's predictable. But Proverbs kind of tells us actually life's pretty unpredictable, but here's some better or worse ways to go about it.
Yep. Yeah. And if it was formulaic, if it was what you were saying, 2 plus 2 equals 4, then I would just be on my merry way. I mean, that's great. I don't need God in that. Just give me the
That's
formula
right.
and I
That's right.
can, but instead it's like, oh, none of this is formulaic and I need him every step of the way. That every moment I need thee. And that's part of the reason it's not formulaic because all of
Mm,
us would be prone to just
that's
be
right.
like, thanks, God, I got it. I got the
That's right.
formula and I'm,
That's
you
right.
know, see you on the
Yeah.
other side. We wouldn't depend on him every day.
What is the role of wisdom in Proverbs in the sense that it kind of seems like this personified, living, acting, breathing, like help readers kind of navigate, especially in the first part of the book. It seems like wisdom is almost alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it is personified as a woman. So the way Proverbs is structured, you have the first 9 chapters, which is setting up the whole, really trying to create a desire for wisdom in you. So it's a father speaking to a son, and he's talking about 2 women, and he's talking about the Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. and that there is a path that each of these women are laying out. And he's encouraging his son to not go down the path of folly, not listen to Lady Folly, because that leads to death. And so, but to listen to Lady Wisdom, because that leads to life. And then you have chapters 10 through 30, which are just the collected sayings of wisdom. And they're all over the place, right?
They
Kind of like,
are. They're great.
they're just pithy, and they bounce subjects, and it's hard to find any structure. And then you get to the end of Proverbs, and you have the concluding chapter, chapter 31, which is again a woman, right? It's a bride.
Mhm.
And this is a mother speaking to a son now. So you have the father
Mm,
speaking to the son, and then you have the mother speaking to the son, and
okay.
both are speaking about the type of woman they should either listen to, or the type of woman that they should seek and pursue as a bride. And so to understand the structure of it, and to understand what Solomon was doing, and Solomon didn't even understand, because it's not until we get to the end of the story that we understand that, not only is Christ the embodiment of all wisdom, that all knowledge and wisdom is found in him, but then when we get to Revelation, we again see the two women. We see the bride of Christ, and we see
Mm,
and we see the, you know, we'll just call her the woman of Babylon for a
that's
minute,
right.
because I
Yes.
don't know who's
Yeah.
listening.
Okay. The new
Yeah.
Jezebel. Or yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So they pop up again at the end of the story. And really what both the father and the mother in Proverbs are doing, they are begging the son to walk toward Lady Wisdom, and to walk on the path that leads to life.
Mm.
Did that answer your question, or did I rabbit
No,
trail?
no, that's fantastic, especially on the structure piece. So if I guess for some people, I mean, even pastorally, you go, I think some people want to walk the path of wisdom thinking it leads to God versus it
Mm,
flowing from God already reconciling you to himself. I mean, there's a way of reading Proverbs that kind of feels like, oh, if I start doing all this stuff, I can get right with God type of deal.
mhm. That's right. That's right. Well, it talks a lot about like the righteous and the wicked, just like Psalms
That's
does.
right.
And I think
Yeah.
we read that from from our understanding on this side of the cross, that, that righteousness has been given to us. And so I think when we read righteous and wicked in the wisdom literature, we have to understand that the author is usually speaking about those that are walking with God and those that are not walking with God.
Mm,
And so to understand that in light of, God's people, and those that are being faithful to God within his people, and those that are not, and that are living in opposition to his ways. But I think what you said about this idea that we want to obey to get to God, instead of understanding that he is the fountainhead, he is the source, he is the one in whom this path of life is laid out. So it's in him and through him and
that's
for
right.
him that we walk this path, not because he's at the end of it, but because he's the very beginning of it, which is what the theme verse for all of Proverbs is, Proverbs 9:10, and it says, that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord. Or I probably said that backwards. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so he is you can't get to wisdom without
Without
God.
him.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let me ask you this because, right, we mentioned God's designed the world and for humans to flourish in a certain way. And even for non believers, right, there are
Hmm.
ways in which in God's general grace and his loving kindness, non believers can flourish in better or worse ways. It may not be salvific, right?
Right. Right.
Uh, does Proverbs work for them? Or is this only, hey, if you're not a Christian, don't worry about trying to follow this stuff?
That's such a great question. No, I think it absolutely is, because this is God's world, and because he created it a certain way, and he created us a certain way, that this way of wisdom is flourishing, right? It's good to be kind to your neighbor. It's good to not be a nagging wife. It's good to be a child that listens. I mean, these are good for you. And so salvation belongs to the Lord alone. But the path of wisdom is good for anybody to put their feet on. It is just like you said, the way of flourishing. And then we pray that through that, they would come to know the Lord. I do think that the unbeliever is limited in his or her ability to
Yes.
really know what the path of wisdom is. because you have to know his character, you have to know his ways, you have to know his will. This is all how we walk on it, is by knowing him. And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, you can pick up a proverb and you can maybe be an honest business person, because Proverbs talks about, being an honest business person. Um, but you will not fully understand how that's reflecting the character of.
Well, and I don't know if you'd agree with this or not, but it seems like so much of that is because it, I mean, it is a transferable wisdom, yes, father to son, mother to son, but there's a relational component in desire, right? Like if I know God, then I actually desire these things. If I desire them, I'm more likely to live them out. And wisdom being, that, you know, knowledge put into practice for the glory of God, if we want to call it that, or something similar.
Yeah.
I feel like the desire piece is really big in walking in wisdom.
Yeah, I think that it has a strong correlation with the trust piece, because the unbeliever is going to hit some of these wisdom sayings and not do them because they don't actually trust that they're wise, right?
And
This
that's a
idea
good
of
point.
walking in our own wisdom. And so whether it's the desire for it, or I would say even the thing that's further down the path, I'm not not the path of wisdom, but just the path of our own hearts, is the ability to trust that this is actually the better way. Because we everybody wants wisdom. Everybody seeks wisdom, right? And so this idea of like, where do you go to get it and why do you go there? Ultimately is going to be an issue of trust, because you either trust that you're smart enough, clever enough,
That's
your
right.
list of pros and cons is strong enough that you can figure it out on your own, or your friends have enough good advice,
Hmm.
or you trust that actually God is the one that knows what is best for me. And so Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it was a verse that I had in my kitchen back in the day, and anyway, it's a funny story of how it got there, but this Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. But that first word, trust in the Lord with
Mm,
all your heart, and then it
hmm.
goes on to say, and in all your ways. I mean, that's hard. So I think the
Very.
desire for has to be rooted in the fact that he is trustworthy.
That's right. And which, we talk a lot out here about just defining faith as a tangible expression of trust, right? That to walk by
Hmm.
faith is to live in a way that shows the
Yeah.
world I actually trust God, even if it doesn't make sense, right? Even
Right.
in
Right.
our cultural paradigm, it may not make sense, but I'm going to trust that his ways are better.
Right, right. Well, and Isaiah, right, is like, his ways are better than your ways. They're higher than your ways. His ways are not our ways, and his thoughts are not our thoughts. But then he gives us this idea that, well, they're higher and they're better than your ways and your thoughts. But yeah, I think that's the in some ways the kind of this top quality characteristic of a believer is that we are trusting. Like that is an indication of you've been walking with the Lord for a while,
That's
because
great.
you've
That's good.
you've proved him over and over, as the hymn says, and he's trustworthy.
That's good. Okay, you mentioned a second ago, friends, and I think one of my favorite proverbs, I just call it the "Don't surround yourself with idiots" proverbs. You
Right?
know, but I was curious for you. I mean, you've had to do a lot of work in here. You've written on it. You were in a really good Proverbs study that came out. You're part of the contributing authors to that. In your study, I got two questions. Part one is big picture. You mentioned Lady Wisdom, Lady Folly. What are some main things they both call out for? Right? Like Lady Folly says, hey, do these things. Like there's some indicative things in folly. There's some indicative things to wisdom. So, what are some of those? And then, secondly, just you personally, are there specific proverbs that you kind of hold on to that go, man, these have really helped?
Yeah. Well, I think the indicatives, or I mean the imperatives, the commands for kind of pursuing wisdom that Lady Wisdom calls out. I mean, they're action verbs. They're cry out, seek, dig, search. You're reaching for, you're striving for. I mean, it's huge participation language. It's this idea
Okay,
that
that's good.
this is not, you're not just going to sit there and this thing passively fall into your brain. I think it was R.C. Sproul that said, I became a Christian immediately when God gave me a new heart and gave me faith, but he didn't immediately fill my head overnight with all the things I need to know. It's not this passive
Yep.
receipt of wisdom. And James is like, ask and you'll receive it. And it's
Right.
true, but I think the way we think that happens then is like, oh, it's, God just drops it in my head. But
Well,
when we read Proverbs, it's like, no, you're working for this thing. You are searching and seeking. And I think the way that plays out in real life is that we have to search the scriptures. We have to know the scriptures. We have to have this, it's what Jesus talks about in the parable of the two houses, the two men in Matthew's gospel. They have to build this foundation. And that's a daily thing that you're building this knowledge base of who God is. So wisdom is not knowledge, but wisdom requires knowledge. So they're not
yes.
the same thing, but that accumulation of knowledge, I think is what Solomon was talking about in Proverbs. Like you've got to search for it,
Uh-huh.
seek for it, um,
Yes, I love that. Back
dig
home, we
for it.
say back home, we say you can't lean on a shovel and pray for a hole.
I'm gonna have to pass
Yeah,
that one off. My husband just
yeah.
finished building a big fence for our
Yeah,
horses,
there you go.
so I'm gonna have to tell him that one because wouldn't that be nice? But isn't
I
that so
know, it would be.
true? I
It
love
is.
that.
It
Lean
is.
on a
Well, it reminds me of the
shovel.
Dallas Willard quote. I think it was Dallas Willard, where he said, "Grace is always opposed to earning, but never opposed to effort." And I
Yes.
and I think there's some anxiety there around Christians where we want to be so grace, 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 grace. We're so scared that we might
Mhm.
think we're earning that the effort piece kind of gets lost. Even though Paul says
Mhm.
in Titus, grace actually trains us for
Right.
righteousness.
Right. Right. Well, and Dr. Carson said, he talks about it being grace-driven effort. He says, we don't drift towards holiness. We don't, and I would just say we don't drift towards wisdom. That is not who we are at this point in the story of redemption. We do not naturally drift passively towards wisdom. We have to work, but then his term grace-driven effort. So even the effort that we put in is by the grace of God. The
I love that.
desire, back to your point, the desire that he gives is by his grace. And
Hmm.
so even this ability to work at it, but yeah, but it is work. I mean, that's all those words, all those verbs in Proverbs. And then Proverbs tells us it's just like get wisdom, get it, like
Yep, get it.
got milk, it's like get wisdom. And so how do you get it? Well, you gotta dig for it. You gotta work for it. So anyway, I don't even know if that's answering the first part of your question, but there are a lot of action verbs. There is effort involved. There is intentionality, meaning it involves our will, our volition. Like we have to participate in this, and we have to set our feet on that path. I mean, the Father is pleading with the Son to do this. So
That's right.
clearly there is choice in this. Clearly, and I do think that salvation can come to people and they do not pursue a life of wisdom. They do not ask God to put them in paths of righteousness, lead me not into temptation, but
Right,
but
right.
put my feet on these paths of righteousness. And so it is a place that we work out our salvation with fear and trembling. It is the
Mm,
part of our walk with the Lord that involves all of who we are and including our effort. But then you said something about like verses that have really helped. I mean, I think the Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is going to be an all-time favorite because it's so all of life, trust in the Lord with all my heart and lean
mm,
not on my own understanding, but in all my ways acknowledge him. I
mm.
mean, that's really hard. I lean on my own understanding a lot.
Oh, yeah,
And
me too.
I'm the queen of the pros and cons list and figuring things out on my own. I'm like, I think I am
Yeah.
way more able and clever to do these things than I am actually able to. So I think that is one that just brings me back again and again and again to who the Lord is.
What, right, so you got Lady Wisdom, and we're supposed to pursue it, seek it, action, intentional effort, grace-driven effort. It's almost like this is probably too reductionistic, but one we need to pursue And yet there's this whole other one that's kind of always pursuing us, right? This lady
Mm-hmm.
Folly, and
Yeah.
she's in the streets. And I mean, look, there's some really, if I read it literalistically, I should say,
Right.
I'm going, yes, adultery is bad and there's
Right.
a temptation and it will destroy you. But bigger picture
Right.
on that, bigger picture, foolishness in general will pursue you and destroy you. And I mean, there's all this like sensuous language, right? She's in the street and she smells good and she
Mm-hmm.
looks good. And you go back to her tent and then you kiss her and then her lips are dripping with poison. And then it's just kind of
Right.
this whole, it's really vivid imagery Solomon uses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrifying, honestly. I mean,
Mm,
it's, we read it and we think, "Oh, this is about, marital faithfulness or sexual purity or lining your life up with the biblical sexual ethic." And it's not that.
yeah.
It's just so much
It's
more
not
than
less
that.
than that. Yeah, it's not
It's
less
not
than
less than that. Obviously,
that.
that is foolish. Like that is contrary to the ways of the Lord,
Yeah.
but it's clearly so much more than that. And I think when we frame Proverbs, not only the structure like we started off with, that it really is about these women. And then we go to the end of the story and we see, oh, those women are there again. And one of them is the bride of Christ. Like Lady Wisdom is the bride of Christ. And so we are the bride of Christ. And so how are we desiring to be this lady of wisdom, to walk in his ways? But yeah, I think that the like you said, the personification of Lady Folly, um,
Mhm.
man, it's just it is such a clear image of the wisdom of the world, right? It looks so good. It looks
Yep.
so right. And even to extend this Lady Folly into sort of all, and it's more than this, but even extending it into all of the biblical sexual ethic and the way the world just like says, calls it looks like the world is offering wisdom, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's like, oh, this all falls in these categories that these first 9 chapters of Proverbs,
Mm.
warns us so clearly. And to remember that the father is pleading with the
Leading.
son
Right,
to not listen.
right.
And he's laying out, it's almost like Deuteronomy all over again, where God is pleading with his people on the front end. Like this is not once they're down the path. This is on the front end of there is life and death. There is blessing and cursing. Like there are these two ways. And please choose life. Like please choose the way of blessing. Please choose the way of flourishing. And it's just so kind of our Father to to tell us on the front end. Like we don't have to be fools. We don't have to be fools. We
That's a
don't
good
have to
point.
live foolish lives.
That's a good point. So how would you use this if you were discipling someone or leading someone or mentoring, pouring yourself in? Like what how would you put Proverbs into operation in
Yeah.
someone else's life as a kind of like a pathway of spiritual growth?
Yeah, I think it can be a hard book to do that with, but I think
Right.
it's an important book to do it with. So I think that if we go back to some of the things we've already talked about, so thinking about the cre- asking God to give you a desire for wisdom. Like so the desire
That's good.
first, right? Like that you have to really start there. Like I want the Lord to orient my heart towards this path of wisdom so that I want it. I want to walk it freely. I want to walk it like I want to him that this is the way of life. But I think we have to ask God for that. And so, and then to go back to this active pursuit, this part that we participate in. Well, if wisdom is walking in God's world, God's ways, we have to know
Mhm.
God's ways. So,
Mhm.
encouraging anybody you're discipling to actually know, like, what are the ways of the Lord? What is he doing in the world? How is his character reflected in his people and why? Like, there's this huge mission going on. And we
Mhm.
have to know that, and we have to know what
Yeah.
God is doing and who he is. And then we have to start talking about the character of God. Like, what are the places in
Mm.
Proverbs that you don't trust that this is his way? That this is
Mhm.
better, that this is the better
Mhm.
way. And so to look at it from an issue of trust and what's going on in our hearts, like in what am I trusting?
That's
In what
good.
am I placing my trust? And so helping disciple people towards trusting the Lord. And then
Yeah.
honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, we can go back to James, which is New Testament wisdom literature. And he's like, don't just be hearers of the word, but do what it says.
Do it.
So
Do what
there's
it
an
says. Right.
aspect of like, okay, just do it. Like, just walk in these things. Like when you read a proverb and it's talking about how you use your money or how you use your words or how you use your time or how you're a friend to somebody, like trust it and then do it. Like actually put it into
Yeah.
practice. So I think it depends on who you're discipling, but I think there are some really practical ways of landing the plane in all of our lives.
No, that's really good. And look, that whole obedience piece, it's almost lost a little bit in disciple making today. At least some, in the sense
Oh, I
of
know.
intellectualism, sure. Emotions, don't even get me started. Like they're all, but the sheer fact that Jesus says, "He who loves me will obey my commands." Not if you want me to love you, you'll obey my commands, but if you love me, you'll actually do what I say. And the Christian life, in some ways, is complex because we have competing desires and spirit of flesh, but it's not super complex as far as what Jesus has asked us to do,
I know. I
right?
know. And the things that are less clear, like just do the things that are clear. I mean, that's that whole like
Yeah, that's a good
so many
point.
people are like, "Lord, what is your will for my life?" And I'm like, "Well, some of it he's already said. Like don't lie, don't steal, don't commit adultery." First Thessalonians, his will for your life is your sanctification. Like be holy, pursue righteousness.
Mhm.
There are so many things that we want to step over and be like, oh no, that's not what I'm asking you, Lord. I'm asking, what house should I buy? And it's like, can we not worry about that? And can we just do what I've already told you to do?
That's
And
great.
all of
That's
these
great.
things, right, will be added.
That's
Like
great.
all of these things are going to work out. But yeah,
That's really
the
good.
the just do it is not anti-biblical, that's for sure. It's where
No,
it's what you said. It's where we place it. Do we
it is.
obey to earn because we think we earned God's love, or do we obey because we know we are deeply loved?
That's really good. Okay, I told you 30 minutes. I'm a little bit over. Final words, and then tell everybody if they want to find more of your resources and your Gospel Coalition stuff. If there's anything you want to make them
Yeah.
aware of, I'd love for them to know how to find the good work you've done. And then any last words on Proverbs where you're like, we hadn't talked about this, but I'd love somebody to know this about the book.
Oh, I think I would say go back and read Proverbs 31 in a new light,
Mm,
looking at this idea that, it's not just like for women, right? This is for men too, because men are the bride of Christ. And this is the ideal bride. And looking at it through the lens of lady wisdom. I think Proverbs 31 has been
you wanna-
kind of taken over by women, but it's for all of us. And so go back and read
mm,
it through that lens. And then, yeah, finding me. I have a website, just my name, so that's easy. Instagram, I'm not super active, but I'm semi-active.
yeah.
And Gospel Coalition stuff, I would say either sign up for our women's newsletter. I can send you a link. We can put it in the show notes. And sign up for the Deep Dish podcast. That's the one that Melissa and I are doing
Yes.
together, where we're trying to talk about a lot of issues of just wisdom issues, like what does the gospel have to do with this particular real life topic, with how we live the moments of our days. So
Yes, and I'll echo that too. That's such a good, fun. Y'all take things seriously, but don't take yourselves too seriously, which is, I think, a really good mix of things. So I would recommend
thanks.
that podcast as well. And hey, as one native Southerner to a transplant, welcome to the South. Now, Texas is not the South, no matter what they think. But I grew up in Alabama, so I'd love to
Yeah,
officially
Texas is
welcome you.
not the South.
No, it's its own thing.
Texas is its own continent. I mean, it's not
That's
even its
exactly
own
right,
country. It's like
and
its
they're proud
own.
of it.
Yes, I
Yeah,
know. I
yeah.
know. Some of it's justified, but maybe not
That's
all of
right.
it.
That's
Sorry,
right. All right.
Texans.
Hey, hopefully we'll do it again. Thanks a lot, Courtney.
Thanks, Jamie.
We thank you for listening to this episode of the Downline Podcast. Please subscribe, give us 5 stars, help us to get this content out to as many people as possible as we continue to partner with men and women in the Great Commission as we seek to make disciples as a lifestyle for a lifetime.